In his recent address to Israel's Knesset, asking for aid to fight off the Russian invasion of his country, Ukrainian President Zelensky explicitly invoked the memory of the Holocaust, in particular of Babi Yar, the ravine near Kiev where Nazis killed 34,000 Jews over just 2 days at the end of September 1941. A short time later, addressing the European Council, Zelensky singled out Hungarian President Viktor Orban, who had refused to commit aid to Ukraine. Zelensky asked him to visit his own country's Holocaust Memorial in Budapest, saying, "You will see how mass killings can happen again in today's world. And that's what Russia is doing today." End quote. Ukrainian professor Yochanan Petrovsky-Stern, who teaches Judaic studies and history at Northwestern University, told journalist Masha Gessen that, quote, "From a purely historical standpoint, there's no comparison between the Holocaust and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as you might have guessed." But he added, from the point of view of rhetoric, the comparison makes sense. He is saying, Zelensky is saying, they are coming to erase us. In the concluding section of this week's Torah portion, Parashat Acharei, God commands, "Ushmartem et chukotai v'et mishpatai, asher ya'aseh otam ha'adam v'chai bahem." You shall keep my laws and my statutes, that people shall follow them and live by them. V'chai bahem, and live by them. This admonition is so important this week, being read just after Yom HaShoah, after Holocaust Remembrance Day, which we observed this past Wednesday evening and Thursday, on the Hebrew anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943. In his seminal article, Cloud of Smoke, Pillar of Fire, published in 1974, Rabbi Irving Yitz Greenberg identifies life itself, creating life, sustaining life, dignifying life, as the only valid religious response to the Holocaust. Quote, "I for one believe that in the light of the crematoria, the Jewish people are called to recreate life," Greenberg wrote, and then continued, "We also face the urgent call to eliminate every stereotype of discrimination that reduces and denies this image, the divine image, in the other." Before concluding, "The indivisibility of human dignity and equality becomes an essential bulwark against the repetition of another Holocaust. It is the command rising out of Auschwitz." It's not an accident that the ascendant movement of autocratic governments around the world, including that of Vladimir Putin's Russia, all practice forms of ethno-nationalism. They're all protecting a particular nostalgic national culture by discriminating against, by fomenting distrust of alleged outsiders. The legacy of this leadership will be the mass graves discovered across Ukraine. Putin increasingly identifies his leadership with the Russian Orthodox Church, casting himself as a defender of traditional Christian values in opposition to encroaching Western decadence. Putin's ethno-nationalist and religious rhetoric, his anti-democratic tendencies, parallel those of other ultra-conservative leaders across the world. But for Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, these religious movements may feel that they are opting for stability, that they're choosing tradition, but they're actually choosing against life itself. And Greenberg cites a recent study from the University of British Columbia that found that citizens in a democracy live an average of 14 years longer than those in an autocracy, enjoying higher standards of health, education, and quality of life. For all these reasons, Greenberg concludes, liberal democracy is the most religiously positive form of government and society. In stark contrast, Putin's ethno-nationalist autocracy has already led directly to the deaths of thousands of people and great suffering and loss to millions and millions more. Or again, in Greenberg's words, creating and preserving democracy against autocracy is a matter of life and death. Choosing life, v'chai bahem, means upholding democracy and democratic values. It means protecting the innate dignity of everyone so that nobody comes to erase anybody else. V'chai bahem, and live by them. It means creating life, sustaining life, dignifying life. This Shabbat following Yom HaShoah, with the forces of democracy and totalitarianism again at war around the world, we must reaffirm that we are standing on the side of life. Shabbat Shalom.